Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On October 26th of 2018, this defendant shot and killed two of his friends.
Ayo gang, so welcome back. You know how I do my reaction videos. There's always a little drawing on the side, so I'm still working on my little baby drawing. But we've all been waiting for Melly's trial to start. YNW Melly is finally started, and we're gonna hop straight into the opening statements today, part 1 from your boy KB Goes Live. If you don't follow him or subscribe to him, hop over to him on YouTube, KB Goes Lives. Give my boy a subscribe.
What's poppin', everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's KB and we locked in. Now let's jump into it. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the YNW Melly trial.
And I'm going to be using some light pencils just to shade baby's face. I'm not using any B's. I'm going to try to use some lower numbers in the H's. And if I have 1 or 2 F's, I got an F right here and an H. I'm talking about, you know, your pencil grading. So I'm gonna put it in front of this phone camera right here. I got an H and I got an F. I'm put it in front of here so y'all can see me here. This is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, like, you know, the type of pencil that I'm using today. An H and an F, cause the face don't require too much or nothing too dark. So we're trying to, like, once we use light pencils, it's gonna be hard for us to get dark, you know what I mean? So you want to keep that in mind. So
Specifically, the opening statements. These opening statements took over 8 hours for the prosecutors and defense attorneys to deliver, and I realized that most of y'all don't want to sit and watch an 8-hour video, so I'm taking the most important pieces and condensing it into something a bit more consumable for you guys. I'll also be providing insights into the arguments from each side, and we'll be examining some of the evidence as we go. Now this would be like part 1 of what might end up being a 5 or 6 part series, as I might cover this whole thing from start to finish if you guys enjoy it. And I normally wouldn't ask to the end of the video, but just because it's kind of like a new content style, if you guys find that you enjoy it as I go through it, hit that like button so I can tell if y'all really enjoyed it or not. So with all of that being said, and without further ado, let's go. So the YNW Melly trial has officially started after basically 5 years of him sitting behind bars for the murder of his 2 best friends, Christopher Thompson.
bro, it's been 5 years already, bro. That's crazy, bro. I was wondering how long it was.
Jr. and Anthony Williams, better known as YNW Sack Chaser and YNW Juvie. Obviously, Melly claims innocence in this case, but there's a mountain of quote-unquote evidence that's against him, and prosecutors are going to be doing their best to try to cook Melly in this trial. Melly is facing the death penalty in this case, and in fact, just the other day, the judge granted a motion from state prosecutors which will allow Melly to receive the death penalty with an 8-4 vote from the jurors. In the past, these types of cases that had the death penalty would need a unanimous vote from all 12 jurors to make that happen, but they're using a new law in Florida that lowers the vote down to 8. This law came into effect after the Parkland school incident that took place, and the shooter didn't get the death penalty due to a split jury. This is the law that they used to make this change in the YNW Melly case as well. Now with that being said, this is indeed what we would call a high stakes case for both sides, and some of the arguments that you guys are going to hear throughout this are absolutely wild. So let's go ahead and get into the trial, and we'll start with the prosecution's opening statement. Now I know that not everybody is familiar with the court process, so just real quick, I'll tell you what the point of these statements are. In every trial, both sides will get to give an opening statement to the court. Now what's being said in the opening statement shouldn't be taken as facts or as evidence. It's simply a way for each side to tell the jury what they are going to be seeing and what to expect throughout the trial. In an opening statement, the prosecutor's job is basically to explain what evidence they intend to show and what they're trying to prove and how they came to their conclusions. Now the defense's job is to sort of show why the defendant, in this case YNW Melly, is innocent. Remember though, in the US court system, you're innocent until proven guilty, so it's not Melly's attorney's job to prove innocence. He has that presumption already. It's the prosecutor's job to prove guilt. With that, you'll probably hear the prosecutor present a lot of things in a factual way in this opening statement, but it's important to remember that just because she says it like it's a fact doesn't mean it is. Her job and what she's trying to do is prove guilt. So with that being said, here's her opening statement.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. On October 26th of
I think that was I don't know if KB will ever see this, but maybe I'll comment it. I think that was real cool of how he broke down that intro right there, this little part right here, kind of give you a little I mean, I kind of got that, but it gives clearance to like the roles of the prosecutor and the defendant, or the defense, you know what I mean?
Assumption already. It's the prosecutor's job to prove guilt. With that, you'll probably hear the prosecutor present a lot of things in a factual way in this opening statement, but it's important to remember that just because she says it like it's a fact doesn't mean it is. Her job and what she's trying to do is prove guilt. So with that being said, here's her opening statement.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. On October 26th of 2018,
Straight to the
this
point.
defendant shot
She ain't
and
even
killed
playing around.
two
She
of
went
his friends.
straight to the point.
Damn. When the prosecutor opens with a statement like, this defendant murdered 2 people right out the gate, you know it's about.
That's what I'm saying, bro. She went straight to the point. Good morning. How are you? This man killed 2 people.
To be something serious.
She even said, how are you? She just went right in.
This defendant on October. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. On October 26th of 2018, this defendant shot and killed 2 of his friends.
You know
Oh,
me, though.
God damn. When the prosecutor opens with a statement like, this defendant murdered 2 people right out the gate, you know it's about to be something serious.
He killed Christopher Thomas and Anthony Williams. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to set out the story and how this unfolded and lay out what I expect the evidence will show during the course of this trial. First thing you're going to hear is that at 4:35 a.m. on October 26th of 2018, Cortland Henry, a co-defendant, shows up at Memorial Miramar Hospital.
So what she's talking about is when YNW Bortland showed up to the hospital with Julie and Sag Chaser in a car after they had been shot. Bortland is Melly's co-defendant in this case and is also charged with the crime.
In his car, he has 2 dead bodies. In the front passenger seat is Anthony Williams.
2 in them.
In the rear passenger seat is Christopher Thomas. They are dead, they are riddled with bullets, and the car is full of blood. Christopher Thomas is sitting in the rear. There is multiple defects to his body. Anthony Williams, who is sitting in the front, has 2 major injuries.
You know when they arrest you and they tell you that anything you say can and will be used against you? Well, you guys are about to see that in real time as the prosecutor is about to retell the story that Bortland told the ER staff when he arrived at the hospital.
Officer Jessica Amangor is working a detail at the hospital. Cortland Henry runs in, starts telling a story about a drive-by. Quote unquote drive-by. Cortland Henry, and you're going to learn a lot about Miramar geography during the course of this trial, tells a story that he and his buddies, just the 2 that are in the car, were at a music studio here in downtown Fort Lauderdale at 805 Northeast 4th Avenue. He's going to tell law enforcement, and you're going to hear this statement. You're going to hear the actual audio of him telling law enforcement. We were at the recording studio. We drove home as they lived out in West Miramar. You're going to hear Cortland say that they come across in the path of travel, that they're getting off the highway on I-75 southbound to go west on Miramar Parkway. And you're going to hear that on Miramar Parkway, sometime between 160th, which is also commonly referred to as Dykes Road, and 172nd, Cortland Henry says they were shot at. That he ducked down, and you'll see him doing that in the video, and that he didn't see any car, he didn't see any people, he has no information.
What the prosecutor is talking about right here is actually an interrogation that happened between Bortland and investigators where he was giving them statements and he described what happened. And this is what happens when you go into an interrogation room and you don't ask for an attorney. But anyways, his interrogation footage is available online if you guys haven't seen it. You can go watch it. I'm not going to put it in here. We're just going to stick to the opening statements in this video. But she's referring to the interrogation that happened.
For the drive-by is completely and utterly false. How can I tell you that, ladies and gentlemen? Well, The detectives from Miramar, at this point, shut down the entire length of Miramar Parkway from 160th to 172nd. And they sit and they walk side by side for an hour, that mile-long stretch, looking for evidence of this drive-by. Because evidence is the remnants a crime leaves behind. There is a lack of any evidence whatsoever to support that a drive-by happened on Miramar Parkway. What would they look for? Shell casings, glass fragments, projectiles, tire marks. You're going to hear that there is none of that found whatsoever.
See, that's interesting, and that's the thing about committing a crime in 2023, is that detectives have the forensic ability to go back and fact check anything that you say to them. So in this case, she's saying that he said there was a drive-by that happened. But when detectives went to look for evidence of a drive-by, they didn't find anything. And that's real interesting because, again, this is all based off of interrogation footage of Bortland and what he said to the police, the story that he gave them. They wouldn't even have this type of argument if he had never given a statement in the first place. But anyways, let's continue.
So then they said, well, maybe we have the time frame wrong. Maybe we have the location wrong. So they walk an additional mile from 172 to 184th. Still nothing. No broken glass, no projectiles, no fire casings. Detectives know they have a Jeep that they are looking at the Memorial Miramar Hospital that has 16 easily identifiable bullet defects.
Why'd it go mute?
Also, when all of this went down, Bortland had told investigators that he was the only one. Dang, I didn't know it had 16 different bullet holes in the vehicle. That's crazy. So see what she's getting at here? There's 16 different bullet holes in the vehicle, but when they go to where these guys said that it happened, there's nothing. There's no glass, there's no bullets, no shell casings, no anything, which is what initially drew their suspicion over to YNW Melly. Check it out.
And ladies and gentlemen, you're going to see footage from both inside and outside of that recording studio. You're going to learn that on the morning of the 26th at approximately 1 p.m., detectives went out to the recording studio to try and see if somebody had followed the victims, to find out how they knew where they were going to be to set up this drive-by. In the video, that is the first time detectives learned that there was actually 4 people in that gray Jeep. And that the defendant, Jamel Demons, is in the rear driver's side seat.
I mean, look, at this point, she's making a really good case. Like, why would somebody lie and say that they weren't in a car where 2 people were murdered at? If you're being real, it just looks suspicious. It makes you look guilty off the top to even try to say that you weren't there when there's footage of you getting in that car, you know, just 30 minutes before it all went down. But at the same time, that doesn't make you guilty because there's tons of reasons why you may not want to tell the police you were in the vehicle when it happened. I mean, just look at how the police kind of treat people on an everyday basis. I could completely understand not wanting to tell the police that you were in the vehicle or some shit like that
When
went
the
down.
murder went down.
So let me set the scene for you at the recording studio. In the gray Jeep, you have the driver, Cortland Henry, rear driver's side passenger, Jamel Demons, Anthony Williams in the front seat, and Cortland Henry again, the driver, Christopher Thomas, in the rear. This gray Jeep leaves the recording studio, goes over to I-95, takes I-95 south to 595, 595 across to I-75 south, I-75 south to Miramar Parkway. You're going to see traffic cameras from the Department of Transportation that show the cars going across 595, one after the other.
Again, in 2023, it's almost impossible to commit a crime and get away with it because, like she just said, they got surveillance cameras everywhere. So they were able to pull the cameras up of these guys leaving the studio and actually track them across the city using the cameras. But something that you'll find in this case here in just a little bit is even without the help of the security cameras and the traffic cameras, they were using YNW Melly's phone and location data to ping where they were at anyways. In fact, that's going to be a big part of this case is them tracking YNW Melly using his cell signal. Anyways, let's keep listening.
The digital leash. The item that is carried around in everyone's pocket, in everyone's car, used on a daily basis. Because you're going to see.
Yo, y'all notice how, well, I don't know how many interrogation videos y'all be watching or whatever, but I'm noticing that they're now a lot of people are now referring to the cell phone as a digital leash. And like, how you feel about that statement, bro? Because that's such an accurate name. It is such like a leash. It's such a controlling thing for so many people. Your cell phone is like a digital leash, like literally. I don't know. I just thought I'd bring that up because she just said it, and she's not the first, second, nor third person in like a documentary or case interview or whatever, recap, whatever, highlight, whatever that I've watched in the past month that I've heard, you know, call a phone a digital leash.
As Jamel Demons leaves that recording studio, he's got his phone in his hand, and he's playing on his phone. You're going to see on that phone information that Anthony Williams had his phone with him. And the interesting fact that's important to keep in mind is Anthony Williams, the deceased in the front passenger seat, and Jamel Demons, who is the shooter, in the rear driver's side passenger seat, have the exact same make and model of cell phone. Not only do they have the same make and model of cell phone, they are on the exact same cell phone plan. They're using the same service, the same cell towers, everything like that. So you can compare the information from those two cell phones and see how they track together. Christopher Thomas, who's the deceased in the rear passenger seat, he had an iPhone as well, and he was on the Sprint service at the time. And all of the cell phone tracks together. The gray Jeep goes north on 184th up to Pines Boulevard. From Pines Boulevard, it travels west all the way to the edge of the Everglades, where it is desolate, where it is dark, where there are no witnesses. There's no street lights. And at 4:02 a.m., Jamel Demons exits that vehicle and stages that driveway.
Yeah, bro, that don't sound good at all. Essentially what she's saying is, based on the cell phone tracking data, they know that YNW Melly and these other three guys were in the same car, based on the surveillance footage as well. And they know that they drove them out basically into the middle of nowhere, where they knew nobody was going to be at, and then staged this whole crime. That's crazy, bro.
One person says,
but keep in mind, it's your job to make him look guilty off the rip.
oh, it's at this location. One person says it's over here on the side of the road. Look at what the physical evidence shows. So on the physical evidence, the Jeep is towed to the Miramar substation, and a search warrant is executed on it. And at that point, officers, crime scene technicians, and investigators start going through the contents of the Jeep. And all of the ballistic from the drive-by are all coming from the passenger side in towards the driver's side. And then from the rear of the vehicle, forwards towards the front. The medical examiner's office is also conducting an investigation. You're going to hear testimony about the autopsies that were conducted on Anthony Williams and Christopher Thomas. And this is when the suspicion, the investigation takes a turn. Because at that point, the fatal wounds for Christopher Thomas and Anthony Williams are coming from inside the vehicle, from the rear driver's side passenger going out towards the passenger side. The other interesting thing the medical examiner's office is going to tell you is that when the drive-by was staged at 4:02 a.m., the victims were already dead. The medical examiner will be able to testify and tell you that the fatal shots to Anthony Williams, to his head, that enters in the back of his head and exits at the top, blowing out the front passenger window, was fatal. And that the additional wounds that are consistent with the trajectories going through the vehicle, he's already dead. They are post-mortem inflicted gunshot wounds.
Wow, the details are so crazy in this story. She's essentially saying that YNW Melly from the back seat shot both of the victims, and then they went and staged the drive-by. He got out, and then after the two guys were already deceased, hit him again. That's just wild, bro. So they tracked him out there by phone, and then just based off of ballistic evidence alone, based on what she says, they're able to tell that the bullets came from inside of the vehicle from exactly where YNW Melly was sitting. And there's video in this trial, if I believe, that shows YNW Melly getting into the back seat exactly where the ballistics say the bullets come from. Bro, it's not looking good for Melly right now, at least based on what she said. But again, I would like to see the expert testify, because just because the prosecutor says something doesn't mean anything. I would like to see an expert say that, and then I would like to see that expert get cross-examined by the defense's attorney. And it probably wouldn't hurt if YNW Melly took some of the money that he's made and actually hired his own expert to examine the evidence and try to refute the experts that the prosecutor stole up on the stand. But anyway.
Christopher Thomas was shot in his left cheek. That was the fatal shot for him. You're also going to hear about stippling. Stippling is unburnt gunpowder that's ejected from the front of a firearm when a bullet is fired. The best way to describe that and make it easy to understand, you have a handful of sand, soot, and a golf ball. You throw it. The golf ball is going to go the furthest because it has the most weight, the most mass. The sand weighs a little bit more than the soot, so it's going to go a little bit further, but not as far as the golf ball. The ash, the soot, which has almost no weight, no mass, therefore it can't have any energy put into it, falls very quickly. So that is the same principle that comes to gunshot residue and the powder tattooing that you're going to hear about, the stippling. The bullet travels the furthest. The gunshot residue, the powder tattooing, the stippling, creates a pattern. And from that pattern, the medical examiner's office can give an approximate distance. Why can they not give an exact one? Because their firearm in this case was never recovered. Law enforcement made diligent efforts to go and dive multiple canals, search multiple areas, apartments, storage units. They were never able to find the firearm. So without the actual firearm that was used in this case, you can't accurately and reliably recreate a distance determination.
If you ask me, it's probably not the smartest prosecutorial technique to create reasonable doubt in your opening statement, but for me, that's essentially what she just did. She was talking about the gunpowder and how far a bullet will travel and the distance and this and that, and then said basically none of that means anything because we never found the firearm. So you don't have the physical firearm to tie to Melly or Bortland or anybody for that matter, and then you're using ballistic evidence and projectile evidence that you can't even confirm because you don't have said weapon. So for me, all she did here was create a little bit of reasonable doubt, which again isn't the smartest prosecutorial technique, but anyways.
You're right.
But you're also going to hear that Jamel Demons on the side of the road made a FaceTime video chat. At that point, he starts setting up the story. He FaceTimes his girlfriend at the time, Mariah Hamilton. Mariah Hamilton gets the phone call and screams, waking up her mother, Felicia Holmes. Felicia Holmes also sees the defendant, Jamel Demons, on that FaceTime video call.
Okay, so there was a rumor out a while ago that after it had all happened, YNW Melly had made a FaceTime call to his mom. The prosecution is saying that that's actually not true. It wasn't his mom that he called, but he did make a FaceTime call to his girlfriend at that time, and his girlfriend woke up her mother when they found out kind of what was going on or whatever. But it makes sense, though. I do remember the rumor where they said that he had FaceTimed his mom, and remember there was the rumor that apparently this happened because they were making threats at YNW Melly's mom, but according to the prosecutor, that ain't who he called. He called his girlfriend.
But it was also a rumor that it happened because his homie sent nudes to his girl. I remember watching, I don't remember his name, but I was watching this one kid break down. He was reading the paperwork a couple weeks ago, or a few months ago actually, reading the paperwork on this case. But maybe it might come out.
And his girlfriend's mother. And they're saying that this was done 15 minutes before Bortland dropped them off at the hospital. So not only are they using the cell phone tower data to track Melly, they also have the tracking data from the other suspects as well. Plus, they have a FaceTime video call that he made to his girlfriend and his girlfriend's mother 15 minutes before Bortland drops him off at the hospital. And we're about to learn here in just a minute that he also sends his location to another rapper named Fredo Bang because he was trying to get picked up, which basically ties together how he was in the car and then he gets picked up and then Bortland drops the two guys off at the hospital. You see where it's going? Let's keep watching.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's a data event on a cell phone. It's not a call for the purposes of the cell phone companies. It's using data, accessing the internet. Felicia Holmes and Mariah Hamilton see Jamel Demons outside, and he is saying he's just been involved in a drive-by, and he thinks Anthony Williams and Chris Thomas are dead.
Again, I see where the prosecutor's trying to go with this, but I feel like, again, she's just creating more doubt. What she's saying is that there's two other people, YNW Melly's girlfriend and her mother, who say that on the FaceTime call, they said they were involved in a drive-by, which was the official story that they gave police. So for me, again, this just creates a little bit of reasonable doubt. It says to me that there might be two witnesses on YNW Melly's side that say, yes, we got a phone call, and yes, he said they were in a drive-by, which kind of confirms the story that they told police.
I think the reason why she's bringing that up is to create the narrative of how premeditated it all was, you know?
So what you're also going to find out is while Mr. Demons is out there on the side of the road, 4 in the morning, 4:42 specifically, he sends a drop pin, digital homing beacon, to his current location, to one of his friends, Frederick Givens. Frederick Givens is also involved in the music industry, and he asked to be picked up. Frederick Gibbons, then, about 11 minutes later, is sent another drop pin where Mr. Demmons has moved a couple of meters. They have health data. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to find and hear and be able to see the videos at the recording studio and see Mr. Demmons taking steps. Lo and behold, look at the health activity data, a pedometer, a step counter, that's what it is. 70 steps.
No way. Yo. It really is a digital leash, bro. That thing got us, bro. Yo, cause there was this one interrogation or video I watched where this criminal got caught because he was about to get away. Swear he was about to get away, but then the detective noticed that he had on a Fitbit. And I think it's that one guy who killed his wife and 2 daughters, and he had on a Fitbit, and the detective realized when he was watching the videos over and over, you know how they record videos, yeah, like their interrogations, whatever, and yeah, he saw that the guy had on a Fitbit, got a warrant for the Fitbit, tracked the steps on the Fitbit, because the guy, he knew that they could check your phone, so he left his phone at home for his alibi, but he had the Fitbit on. They checked the Fitbit. The Fitbit showed that he actually left, and that's how they were able to get him. So they got us, bro.
Then you're going to see at 4:02 a.m. another 70 steps.
Bro, what? They got the health step data, the pedometer. Yo, using somebody's health step data against them in court is crazy, yo.
Then at 4:42, the time frame in which he's sending that drop pin, to 4:53 a.m., you're going to see 1,397 steps.
What?
You will see this data showing the defendant had the phone and was using it. So, ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that I have to prove is the defendant committed the crime. And to do that, the state intends to show the evidence that the phone was there at the murder scene, and there were no other phones there. There is no one else out there at 4 in the morning.
Wait, so I thought they all were connected to like the same network and they were tracking the phone simultaneously together. How is he the only person out there, the only phone out there? For me, that just says he was by himself. I don't know.
The state is going to...
Nah, she mean like... I think she mean... Maybe she miscommunicated that, but I think she's saying he's like the only phone that was showing any activity per se. But then too, you right, because and 2 of them survive. If 2 of them survive, how come he's the only one showing activity? Unless she's just talking about him for now.
Show you the Instagram, the Facebook, the Snapchat. Because contrary to popular belief, Snapchat doesn't disappear. And detectives were able to write a search warrant and get contents of Snapchat. And there are things that are there, and there are things that are not.
There are things that are there and things that are not? Bro, what does it even mean?
So what you will learn from the evidence, from the Instagram, from the private messages, was that Jamel Demmons is a member of the G Shine Blood set. This is not a stage personality. This is not an actor that's playing a character. This was his real life. Ladies and gentlemen, you will see that as soon as October 24th, 2 days before the homicide, Jamel Demmons is learning the oath of loyalty to the G Shine Blood set. You're going to see things in these messages that will be indicative of blood membership. For example, anytime a word would normally be spelled with a C, as in Charlie, they don't use that. They replace it with the letter B. So instead of saying, I'm at the crib, they say, I'm at the rib. Why, ladies and gentlemen? Because C is associated with cribs. B is for bloods. So if you look through all the messages, you will notice time and time again, Jamel Demmons is dropping C's.
So what? I feel like this is such a low blow. What does him being affiliated with the gang have to do with anything in the first place? It has no bearing in the trial, on the case, on the murder, on any of it. It's just kind of like a low blow that she's throwing out there to kind of assassinate his character early on in the jury's mind. Like one of those things that she finds to be derogatory. Oh, he's involved in a gang. But unless this was like a gang hit or something like that, I don't see how it has any relevance. And honestly, if I was like the defense attorney, I would be trying to refute that as much as possible and at least get that information out of the jury's head, unless this is proven to be like a gang hit or something. Because again, I don't know what a gang affiliation has to do with anything other than she's using it to assassinate somebody's character early on in the trial.
That's right. Not why we are here today.
Exactly. So why mention it?
After about 8 a.m. in the morning, Eastern time, multiple messages are coming in. Messages are coming in from individuals checking to see if he's okay, if he's been injured in this drive-by. If it's true that Anthony Williams, who's also sometimes referred to as Sack, and Chris Thomas, who is referred to as Juvie, are really dead. One individual, and specifically, sends out, and I want to quote the message exactly that you will hear, and says, right after this, "Yo, homie, you good? Let me know something." This individual is reaching out, asking if Mr. Demmons is good, after he's been tagged in multiple social media posts about this drive-through, this shooting. And Mr. Demmons responds very succinctly,
I did that.
I did that. Shh.
For me, that's pretty crazy. I mean, it makes it hard to defend it when literally somebody asks you, are you good, after you was in it, and you respond to him that you did it. I would like to see how his defense refutes that and argues against that, because it could have been anything. It could have been like, I did it, like I made it through it. The context matters in the scope of what they're talking about, because they're trying to give this man a death penalty with no
bro, I did that.
Evidence. I haven't heard of any witnesses. There may be some witnesses in this trial, but I haven't heard of any so far. And basically the best thing she said in this entire opening statement was she's got a message where somebody asked him if he was good, and he said, I did that. I mean, I wouldn't exactly call that a confession. And another thing that I find interesting about the Melly case is, and about the opening statement that the prosecutor just gave, is they don't seem to have a motive at all for why YNW Melly would have committed this crime. They seem to have a lot of circumstantial stuff. They might have some ballistic stuff that kind of work in their favor, but for me, you don't even have a motive for why he would do it. And that's really like the outstanding factor for me. Looking at what she said, listening to it, is why would he do it? I mean, they don't have to prove motive in this case, but I feel like a lack of motive really leaves a giant hole in the prosecution's argument. You know what I mean? But yeah, that was basically the prosecutor's entire opening statement. So from here, we're going to take a look at YNW Melly's defense's opening statement. We're going to see the things they say. And just remember, as we go into this, it's not necessarily his defense's job to prove his innocence. They're just there to create reasonable doubt about why the prosecution thinks he's guilty. It's the prosecution's job to prove guilt. And we just heard what they had to say. We got a kind of an overview of the evidence that they're going to have throughout the trial. And now we'll get the opportunity to see how YNW Melly plans on combating that.
Prosecutors are given great power, endless resources to perform their mission of pursuing justice. But that's not what occurred here. What they will bring you is a case that is riddled with reasonable doubt, that is founded on an incompetent and incomplete investigation, and the exercise of poor judgment at every turn.
Goddamn, remember how the prosecutor came out swinging and her first sentence was like, the defendant is here because he killed 2 people, and then she immediately started throwing low blows to get at him? I like how his defense came out and did the exact same thing back to her, immediately calling into question integrity, work ethic, intelligence, basically, and saying that they're all incompetent. He got to be getting a fat check.
The state
He
cannot
did
prove
do that.
beyond a reasonable doubt the allegations that they have made. And there is a reason for that. You recall Ms. Bradley, some of you may recall, during jury selection, going to great lengths to let you know that she does not have to prove motive. And she's right about that. The law doesn't require her to prove motive. But you know what does require motive? A young man to wake up one day and decide that he's going to kill 2 of his best friends. Best friends that he grew up with, best friends that he hangs out with, best friends who he lives with, best friends whose careers he was trying to launch alongside his own.
Yeah, see, this is one of those points that I kind of figured his attorney was going to make, which is, what's the reason? And again, I know there was that rumor about he may have done it because they was threatening his mom or whatever, but I did not hear the prosecutor say anything like that in her opening statement. In fact, I didn't hear any motive at all, so I kind of figured that this would be one of those tactics that YNW Melly's legal team would try to deploy on his behalf, because a lack of motive, you know, it can create that reasonable doubt.
They have no reason for why he would do this, because there is no reason. And if there's no reason, it doesn't make sense. And if after 4 years of investigation, the state comes and says, hey, he killed 2 of his friends, his best friends, and you're wondering why, and their answer is, oh, I don't know. That's the first indication that they're just guessing and don't know what they're talking about. And that, ladies and gentlemen, by itself is reasonable doubt. Why he would commit such a heinous crime against his own 2 best friends for no reason. What happened here is that lead detective, Detective Moretti, saw a video of Mr. Demons getting into a car 40 plus minutes before bodies were found in that car. And then he discovered that Mr. Demons was a rising star. And from that point on, he decided he's the only person that could have committed this crime. Because if you're involved in prosecuting a star, you become a star. This was his big break.
That's tough, but hey, we all know he's spitting facts, because we all know the prosecutors will do that. If they got a famous person that they can pin a crime on, they'll 100% do that, because it puts them in the media, gets people talking about them, it boosts their career. It's almost like a political thing. I actually think that's a pretty good argument from his defense attorney, but the problem with that argument is he kind of needs to provide proof that that would be something that cop would want to do, right? So now he's giving himself a burden of proving something, which I don't think is a good thing ever, but I get what he's trying to do here. You know, a cop has a failing career, or a prosecutor has a failing career, and they want to make it come up, and they got this guy who's a star who's involved in the situation, and if they become involved in prosecuting that guy, suddenly they become famous in a sense as well. You know, I just don't like that now he kind of gave himself the burden of proving that that was their motive for arresting YNW Melly, but let's see what else he's got to say.
And he had tunnel vision. He zeroed in on this person, this young man, as the only possible perpetrator of that crime, to the exclusion of all other leads and evidence. There's a difference between cases that are investigated and cases that are fabricated. When a case is investigated, the state uses all its resources, its investigators, its experts, and all its energy to identify leads and run them to ground. When a case is fabricated, first a target is chosen, and then the state uses all its resources, its investigators, its experts, and its energy to run that target into the ground. That's what occurred here. There are a number of leads that you will discover that were identified by the officers, but were either completely ignored or given short shrift. Let's start with the most obvious one. Cortland Henry. Now, Ms. Bradley started her opening statement by describing some of the lies that he told, as though to impute them to Mr. Demons. Those were not Mr. Demons' lies, those were his lies. Cortland Henry shows up at Memorial Hospital, Miramar. You don't see him sitting there, but where you will see him sitting is in the driver's seat of a car with 2 dead bodies, car riddled with bullets. And when he shows up with a change of clothing, change of shirt, gunpowder residue on his hands, and that he is discharged. They're gonna put it on the homie? And he lies. He lies about where the incident occurred. He lies about how it occurred. And he lies about not having a phone. I think it was Miss Bradley herself who said, everybody has a phone in his pocket, not Cortland Henry. There were 3 phones in that car. There were 3 people in that car.
Oh, are we witnessing YNW Melly's attorney put the blame on Cortland, on Bortland? If that's what's happening, is this snitch? Somebody tell me in the comments. I kind of feel like we're watching YNW Melly's lawyer say that Bortland is like a prime suspect. Let's keep watching. I don't know. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, that's what it feels like to me too.
So they take him at his word, despite suspicious circumstances, and they let him go on his way. They soon discover that he's lying about the location of this incident, and they went back to him, and they labeled him a victim. And they said, we know you're scared. Tell us what happens. He lies to them again. They let him go. And they know where he went. They know the location that he went. They know the house that he went to right after. And any investigator worth his salt would have thought to maybe execute a search warrant on that location. To see if you find any bloody clothes, any DNA, any blood, a weapon maybe. You guys are probably familiar with the series First 48. That's founded on the proposition that if you botch an investigation within the first 48 hours, you pretty much botched it for good. It's 48 months plus later. They still haven't served a search warrant on that location. Why? Moretti already had his man. What's the point of an investigation? To find out what happened. He's using all his resources to try and prove what he has already concluded did happen.
Oof. That's a good point. That's a good argument right there, yo.
Cortland Henry, lead number 2. A gentleman named Montrell Roll. And his sister, Nia Hewitt. Who were they? Well, another police department came into possession of jail calls between those two that occurred within 3 days after the murders, and discussed what they describe as intimate details of the murders. Intimate details means details that are not in the public domain. So 3 days after, these two people are discussing the details of a murder. They go out and interview Miss Hewitt. They don't interview Mr. Roll.
Never heard about this part.
And they ask her, well, how did you know all these intimate details? Oh, I heard it, something to the effect of I had word on the street. Doesn't say when she heard it. Doesn't say who she heard it from. Case closed. They move on.
Holy shit, shout out to Melly's legal team. I actually like this defense. This dude is doing a better job than the investigators and the prosecutors did. He's even providing extra people that could have been involved to the jury. Somebody need to give this dude a raise. This is like a masterclass in how to insert reasonable doubt into a case. He's saying basically there was other leads, there was other people that could have been guilty of this, and they didn't even bother to look. Once they had made their mind up that YNW Melly was guilty, boom, case closed, shut the books, it's all over. We ain't looking into nothing else. We want to prosecute him. Shout out to YNW Melly's legal team. This is a great opening statement. This dude's doing a remarkable job. Well worth the money that YNW Melly is paying him, I'm sure of it.
That's lead number 2. That was ignored.
You got a third one?
Then there's Robert Coburn. Who is he? He is a gentleman that owns a social media account by the name of Backwards. His social media account, almost immediately, within days after these murders, posts this message: LOL, we killed 2 of your niggas.
What? So he's saying there was a whole nother social media post related to this from another guy where the dude basically admitted to it, and I'm assuming they didn't investigate it? Bro, that's crazy.
It took him 7 months to go and talk to Mr. Coburn, the owner of this account, that posts what amounts to an unequivocal confession to involvement in that murder, in those murders. 7 months. Why? Moretti already had his guy. And when they go and talk to Mr. Coburn, what does he say? He said, oh, I created that account and I sold it for $20 to somebody else. Who'd you sell it to? Oh, I can't remember. Were you at the murder scene? No. Did you do it? No. Case closed. That's it. No more investigation. It would occur to a reasonable person, let alone a seasoned investigator acting in good faith. Why would somebody buy an Instagram account when you can create one for free on your own? If not to hide your identity. And if somebody goes to the trouble of buying an Instagram account to hide their identity and then confesses to a murder that you're investigating, maybe you ought to go and figure out who that person is and talk to them. And maybe there is no such person. Maybe it was not sold. These are all unanswered questions. No investigation. Case closed. David Hedgepath.
He had a fourth one?
Who is he, you might wonder?
Whew.
He had a Twitter account called Crucial Almighty. He posts a confession to this murder. Something to the effect of, "We coming at that Jeep." Can't remember the quote. You're gonna hear about it. And essentially it was a confession to involvement in the murders. It took them 1.5 years to go and talk to him. They knew about it 1.5 years earlier. It took them 1.5 years to go and talk to him. Why do you do that unless you've already concluded that you know who committed the crime? You've already determined who your defendant will be. And when they go to this young man and ask him, well, actually before, this is 1.5 years before, they said, oh, we've determined that he was just trying to start an internet beef to advance his career. Who told him that? Without talking to a soul. So it took them 1.5 years to go down there and track him down. And when they do go and track him down, they say, hey, did you commit the murder? No. Were you in the area? No. Where were you? Well, I could have been at work. At work where? Any one of 3 places. Okay, could you give me your work schedule? As though that would prove anything. He said, well, I can get it now. Oh, no, don't worry about it. Just email it to me. Really? And he doesn't even do that. There is no report that he even follows up and sends him an email of this mysterious work schedule proving that he wasn't at the location. They conclude, oh, he's not there. Wasn't him. Case closed.
Wow.
So what does that make? Like 3 or 4 different suspects that his attorneys brought to the light now that he said that nobody followed up with? I would like to see the prosecution's reaction to that. What is the response? Did they follow up? Is this guy just misguided in what he's saying? If what he's saying is true and there was 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different suspects and they didn't pursue any of them because they had Melly and they're going for the death penalty, bro, that's foul.
There are several other people who are potential suspects who were not tracked down. You're going to hear about them during the course of this trial. But beyond that, 3 years after arresting this young man and sticking him in a cell, the state looks at its case and says, oh man, this looks a little incompetent. Miramar police seems to have botched this investigation, and they call the Broward Sheriff's Office and ask them to come and look at the investigation upon which this entire prosecution rests. And he looks at it, and he says he instantly knew he had to start from scratch. I think his words were, it was the worst thing I had seen in my life. This is the Broward Sheriff's Office evaluating the work product of the Miramar Police Department. And we have problems with the Broward Sheriff's Office redo as well, but you're going to hear about that during the course of this trial.
Yeah, so at this point, he's also trying to make the Miramar Police Department look terrible by saying that the Broward County Sheriff's Department
trying.
Wow, this is a terrible case.
Successfully doing it.
Which, again, all he really has to do is insert reasonable doubt because the prosecution has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that YNW Melly is guilty. If they can't do that, they can't convict him.
You're not here to solve a crime. That's their job, and they have watched it. You're not here to judge Mr. Emmons. You're here to judge the sufficiency of the state's case. That is your assignment. You're not here for a show to see who you like more. There are 2 grades, beyond a reasonable doubt and not guilty. A+, everything else is an F. There's no A's, there's no A minuses. Their entire case is hinged upon technology of a phone they claim to have been in Mr. DeMons' possession. What they fail to tell you is that they have come across evidence that Mr. DeMons got out of that car before this incident. They ignore that because it's not consistent with their theory.
What?
This man's life is hanging in the balance. And if there is a scintilla of reasonable doubt, you must have the courage to speak up and say so. You're not here to judge him. You're here to judge the sufficiency of their case. They have a big task in front of them. Should probably get to it.
Yeah, bro. So that was basically the entire opening statement from the prosecution, from the defense, both sides. It kind of gives you a perspective of where this case is going to go, what they're going to be arguing against. I'd like to see what witnesses develop, what experts get brought in, what the arguments are as this trial goes forward. And like I said, I ain't really never done a video like this before, except for maybe my ATK Scotty interrogation video, but that was a little bit different. So if you guys enjoyed this video, the breakdown, the looking at it, the seeing the evidence, looking at both sides of the coin, go ahead, hit the like button, subscribe, tap the notification bell, all that good stuff so y'all can see if I post another one. If I get a good response from this, I might do part 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you know, depends on how long the trial takes all the way to the end of it. So y'all hop in the comments, let me know if y'all want to see that. Hit the like button so I can visibly see that y'all want that. And as always, it's been fun rocking with y'all, man. I'm out.
Hey yeah, so we gonna give him a like and all that and do all that. Hopefully you could give me a like too. I was trying to keep it a little quiet for this one because, you know, I'm just trying to let it go. I got the drawing over here on the side to show you what I've been doing. You can see that so far for this drawing. I've really just focused on little baby's neck area. I mean, it's crazy that what I did there just took a whole hour. May not seem like much, but I'm trying to like get down the darkness, get the proportion of the chin right, the sharpness of the chin, the width of the chin, the angle of this right here. Trying to get that right. It's like a little square but not square, you know. I got my electric eraser. It's pretty helpful getting into, like, you know, these little spots right here. Come on. Just straighten that out a little bit. And try to touch this up right here, but yeah, yo, I'm gonna keep drawing, you know what I mean, and I'm gonna let it go. Hopefully you got to draw something today, and if you didn't, I hope you still get to. There's a lot more time left in the day. There's also tomorrow, but you know, try to get something down today. Thanks for watching, and if you're new to me and you've come across and you've reached this far, yo, thanks a lot. The whole point of my channel, or the whole point of these reaction videos, is just to bring more eyes to my art. And yeah, I just want to like showcase not just my talent, but share tips and tricks as I go along, you know, because they're more like organic, they're more realistic, you know, and like as real life problems come and I solve them in front of you, it can hopefully help you to realize that you too can draw. Because I hate when people say, oh, I wish I could draw, oh, I can't draw. I think anyone can draw if they had enough time to practice it. So yeah, thanks for watching and have a great day, guys.